Week 9 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few quarterbacks I have as sleeper options this week. The first guy, Taysom Hill of the New Orleans Saints. Hill came back to practice this week here, and it looks like he could definitely be the starter, or at least get a lot of snaps in this ball game for the New Orleans Saints. So we haven't seen Hill since week 5 at Washington, after he took that big hit and got carted off with a bad concussion that's cost him the last 3 weeks of the season here. But now if he starts in this ball game versus Atlanta, they give up the fourth most fantasy points to quarterbacks. And we saw Taysom Hill put up some decent fantasy numbers last season as a quarterback in fantasy football. So right now, if they make him the starter over Simeon, this guy definitely is going to get a lot of rushing yards. He's going to get a lot of goal line looks as well with read option runs himself. And it's a great matchup versus Atlanta that gives up the fourth most fantasy points to quarterbacks. So right now, Hill's available in 72% of fantasy leagues. And if you're in deeper leagues or 2 quarterback leagues, he's definitely a quarterback that is a good sleeper option this week. The second guy, Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers, he's out of this ball game with COVID. And right here, Jordan Love, we'll see what this quarterback has after last season. Rodgers didn't like that they took a quarterback early in the NFL draft, so he's been added in 9% of fantasy leagues over the last couple days since the news with Rodgers broke. And this week here, pretty good matchup for the youngster Love here in his first career NFL start at the Kansas City Chiefs that give up the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks. And Love here, we know he's got wheels. We know he can run the football. And I think in this game, the Packers' only chance in this one, honestly, now is a lot of running the football, a lot of design runs by Love as well, in my opinion, because this Chief team, their offense is still explosive, even though it's not as good this season as it was other years. But right here, I think Love could be competitive in this ball game, and we'll see what he's got. This is maybe an audition for next season when Aaron Rodgers is most likely out of Green Bay. So right here, he's available in 91% of fantasy leagues, and I think he could put up 15 to 20 points, and that's not bad for a 2-quarterback league, or obviously a deep league where you need some quarterback play. And the third and final quarterback I have as a sleeper this week is Daniel Jones of the New York Giants. So Daniel Jones here, this Giant team, just a tough season for them on the year. 2-6 on the year. And Daniel Jones, he still had a pretty decent ball game at the Kansas City Chiefs. 222 passing yards, 2 touchdowns in it though, and 5 rushes for 12 yards. And in week 7 versus Carolina, 203 passing yards, a touchdown, 28 rushing yards, and a catch for 16 yards. So right here, he's available in 56% of fantasy leagues as Jones. And right here, I think he could put up 18 to 25 fantasy point range. The Raiders, they give up the 18th least amount of fantasy points to quarterbacks. But this is a ball game where I could see it being a mini shootout, maybe the mid-20s for both teams. It's obviously, the Giants are obviously at home. And Daniel Jones this season, he's played better at home than he has on the road. So right here, the Giants, no Saquon Barkley most likely. Tani and Galladay, we don't know if they're going to play. But right here, Daniel Jones, he gets a decent amount of rushing yards. He's been turning the ball over a little less this season. And I think versus the Raiders, he could have a decent ball game. So that's a few quarterback sleepers I have for week 9 of the fantasy football season.